Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith, Pennsylvania editor for the Center Square, and joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennin. We're still working on a rollout of billions in broadband expansion funds, Pennsylvania being one of the larger recipients of that. But it's kind of changed focus over the last year or so from expanding broadband to some of our most underserved parts of the state, which, as you can imagine, are rural areas, and more into jobs and how we're going to actually build it, not where we're going to build it. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit more about this dilemma.
Yeah, so the House GOP Policy Committee held a hearing on Tuesday looking at rural broadband and expansion. And there's been these outstanding concerns around too much federal rules and regulations that can be a hurdle, or the basic barriers we see on the local and state level, from getting rights of way to put up a tower, to attaching broadband to existing poles already, and a lot of different priorities, a lot of things, basically causing a holdup, delaying things for days, weeks, months, costing more. But something else seems to be more of a problem, at least according to Todd Eches, who's the president of the Broadband Communications Association of Pennsylvania. He's worried that this is shifting from a program to get broadband out and expanded to underserved areas, moving away from a focus on expansion to more a focus of create jobs, even if it's not really getting anything more done. So some of this comes from Pennsylvania insisting on high wage rates for these projects, which means that the cost gets driven up and fewer projects get completed. But as Eches said, what was intended to be a broadband expansion program to bring service to the unserved and underserved has become what some see as an opportunity to divert these dollars for other purposes. What has been quoted to us is that this is as much a jobs bill as a broadband access bill. I think that's wrong. This lack of focus places that goal of access to every Pennsylvanian at risk. So basically, it's this idea of, there's $1.6 billion coming into Pennsylvania over the next few years, but this focus on making sure we get wage rates as high as they can be, or making sure that you have more people working on a job, means that the goal of actually expanding broadband to these unserved areas gets pushed to the wayside.
So what's next? It doesn't seem like this is the end of the conversation.
It's hard to say. Again, this is a years-long program. We'll see all this money rolling in. I think we'll still see from broadband providers kind of fighting with Pennsylvania's Department of Labor and Industry over wage classifications. Basically, Pennsylvania has made a choice not to follow other states for some of these jobs, but classifying them as linemen, which brings a higher wage rate. So I think we'll see more complaints about this. I think we'll see more focus from legislators over how this money is getting spent, especially focused on trying to remove these barriers. Something that keeps popping up with things like pole access and rights of way is state game lands and state forest lands are very, very reluctant to actually let broadband companies come in and attach to their poles or put up a tower. And so I think we may see some compromises on that in the future, or at least that will be where one of the pressure points is. But it's also, there's not necessarily a lot of optimism about getting some of these problems fixed. So we may be stuck in a situation where we spend a lot of money, and even though we spend a lot of money, or even more than Ohio or Maryland might, we may actually end up with fewer connections being made, or with more Pennsylvanians still lacking good, reliable, high-speed internet.
So it sounds like we just can't get out of our own way no matter what. If we fix the labor issues, there's still the permitting issues. It's going to take a long time no matter what we do, it sounds like.
This seems like, broadband, like a lot of these issues across Pennsylvania, tend to get weighted down with various government barriers on the local, state, or federal level. And yeah, that's just a continuing series, whether we're looking at broadband expansion, whether we're looking at different ways to do higher ed or education. Take your pick on this. There's a lot of permitting delays and processes where it takes weeks or months longer in Pennsylvania than it does in other states, unfortunately.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Anthony Hennin, I'm Kristen Smith. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.
Enjoying our podcast? Your reviews help other listeners find our show. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen.